Let's talk tariffs if we can. A little bit of a very brief time frame for you. Late Friday, we saw the Supreme Court rule by a majority of 6-3 that the president's methods to impose tariffs were unconstitutional. The president reacted accordingly. He evoked a new statute, a new avenue, effectively, to levy duties on foreign goods temporarily. We saw the president announce a tariff of 15% globally, but that was on top of the 10% on Friday. So he's raising to another percentage point. It's all a little bit confusing. Trump and tariffs, what on earth is going on? Well, it's a good question. And then one we will put now to Dr. Malik, the chief economist of ADCB, who's been monitoring movements over the weekend. Dr. Malik, really appreciate your time this morning.
Good morning, Tom. Thank you for having me on the show.
Listen, tariffs. We were told back in the day that tariffs were meant to create a little bit more certainty, but this tariff ruling and the latest certainly doesn't seem like it's going to end the uncertainty. If anything, it's going to create a little bit more. UA and global trading partners facing prolonged, dare I say it, uncertainty over US trade policy. From what we've gleaned over the weekend, Monica, What's next in the US? What are we looking out for in terms of clarification?
There's a number of areas that we need to look out for. Of course, one is the new tariffs and how they're going to shift, who are going to be the winners and who are going to be the relative losers from this. The decision was widely expected, and you can see that the administration has been working already in place to introduce new tariffs to counterbalance the loss of the IEEPA ones. So we have to see how those play out. We have to see what does it mean for the fiscal position of the US. So the Supreme Court didn't give a judgment on the refunds to foreign countries, companies, etc., if the funds raised have to be repaid. We have to see the fiscal impact, but you've had over the weekend the US Treasury Secretary coming out and saying that he doesn't expect any change this year in tariff revenues versus last year. And of course, we have to see the implication for the trade deals that have already been secured so far with the US. So indeed, the next week and weeks ahead, months are going to be very much focusing and redefining how the trade tariffs and trade flows are going to develop.
It strikes me, and again, I, as an observer watching in and trying to make sense of the uncertainty out there, it seems that every single time there is a reaction to a tariff policy, a Trump policy, call them what you will, there seems to be another alternative avenue. This latest one, the immediate response to the Supreme Court decision, was to use this different mechanism, this alternative route, if you like, to impose more tariffs. There just seems to be an answer to every decision. Is that a sort of fair assumption of what's potentially going on at the moment?
Absolutely. And I think if we look at the ones that the 10% and then 15%, these are temporary. But then there are the ones that investigations will be done to see if there's disadvantageous trade deals and developments, and then new tariffs can come in. These have been used against China. But I think also what's very important to note is that after Liberation Day, tariffs were much higher. That was also very negative for the US economy. There would have been a shock, but then we did see a willingness to do trade deals. And we did see sort of new trade agreements being made, the weighted average tariff rate coming down. And overall, the global economy was very resilient last year, despite that sharp uncertainty at the beginning of the year. And I think very much so. We will see new frameworks, new mechanism coming in play. But ultimately, given the shift in mechanism, there could be a modest reduction in the weighted average tariff rate for the US. And again, we've seen it around, before the developments of the weekend, it's about 10 to 13%. That could tick down a bit, and that will be positive overall.
Let's talk about us a bit more if we can, Monica. Let's bring it back here to the UAE, to the GCC as a whole. I mean, you and the team at ADCB have done extensive research into the impact the tariffs could and are having on trade here in the region. This latest setback, hiccup, if you like, do you think it's going to have a large impact?
No, and at this point, we're not going to change any of our forecasts related to the tariffs. What we find is, of course, number one, US is a small destination for GCC exports. Much of their exports are in aluminium and steel. There's still a comparative advantage due to the low energy costs that we have here. And also there's the benefit that the US doesn't have enough aluminium production to import substitute from the Gulf. And in fact, what we've seen is, for example, EGA saying that they will build an aluminium plant in the US. This, of course, will take time. But at the moment, the ability to do import substitution is limited. And given the flat tariff for aluminium, steel, etc., there's no advantage from different areas, and we have the cost advantage from here. So that's the direct impact. The indirect impact is going to be the trade flows. And what we did see last year is, of course, the front loading at the beginning of the year and then the inventory build-up. We do expect some impact of that going into this year. But the fact that Asia could be a net beneficiary of the new trade mechanisms actually could be positive for East-West trade. But we already saw East-West trade rebounding quite strongly after the initial shock. So we don't expect to see any negative impact from that side. And again, the third pillar would be really global growth. And again, our main thesis is that new deals will be done if the tariff rate actually does come down a small amount, the weighted average to the US. I think overall the impact will be relatively limited, but possibly to the positive.
Monica, eyes all went to the market straight after these decisions over the weekend. We're seeing sort of mixed bag on the markets as well. But given the geopolitical tensions and ongoing talks at the moment, is that a focus for us this week, keeping an eye on the metals and the commodities markets?
Absolutely. And of course, central to our region is oil. We have seen oil now over the $70 level for Brent crude. And of course, alongside the trade and tariff focus, very much the focus will be on the wider MENA region and geopolitics on this front as well. So this is another key area that we will and the world will be watching out for this week and the coming weeks.
Dr. Monica Malik, can't thank you so much indeed for making it a lot clearer at the moment. A whole mess out there in terms of all things tariffs, but Dr. Monica Malik, Chief Economist, ADCB, explaining it to us this morning here on the Business Breakfast.